Hi, welcome to Sportsy. Let's talk sports. I don't usually wear a cap on the talk show, but today, to celebrate India's 74th Independence Day, we have a special episode where we have somebody with us. Where I think it was mandatory for me to wear a cap, and something it just felt from within that I should be wearing this cap. Something we are talking about, just owning this merchandising to show that I'm a fan. I'm a greatest fan of Indian cricket. Today we have somebody who has been a fan for many, many, many years, and somebody who started a big revolution, big movement around being fan, and he actually created an army. We have somebody who really have 60,000 plus people across the world supporting Indian cricket team whenever they go and play. Please welcome Rakesh from Bharat Army. Thank you for your overwhelming response to Sportsy. Thank you for liking it. Please share and subscribe and help us spread the message of sports. Let's talk sports. Hi Rax, great to have you on Sportsy. Let's talk sports.
Hi Sid, thanks for having me on board.
Great. We've been talking to a lot of people in the sports industry on this platform, and it's really great to have somebody who is a thorough fan for years together. And it is not left, and you've not stopped at being a fan yourself. You have created an army. There are 60,000 people in Bharat Army across the world supporting multiple aspects of Indian sport, Indian cricket mainly. And yes, we've been hearing about you for so many years. Earlier, it was Satish talking about Sachin Tendulkar. That's how it started, and but after that, we started seeing the group started coming. It was only Barmy Army was known earlier, and then the whole Bharat Army. What made you start the whole Bharat Army, and what made you go beyond yourself to be a fan and actually get people involved in the moment?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective as an Indian growing up in the UK, a British Indian, um, you know, we Indians outside of India sometimes feel a disconnect to our country, and whenever India used to come and play in England, you'll always see thousands and thousands of Indians flock to the stadiums, right?
Yeah.
So it's quite commonly known that when India come, it's almost like they feel like they're playing at home, particularly in the white ball cricket,
Right.
And I'm no different to every other Indian, right? I'm very passionate about cricket. I'm very passionate about my country. And growing up in England, I saw what the Barmy Army did, and I was really envious of what they had created. And it just happened in 1999 that I had an experience an India versus Pakistan match, and I thought to myself, you know what, we should have the equivalent of the Barmy Army, and that's how it basically started. It was for the love of the country, the passion of cricket, and something which I felt there was a gap. Why shouldn't the most passionate cricket fans in the world have their own supporters group, their own voice?
Correct. The whole thing started with 1999, India having an amazing clean slate against Pakistan. It's a great thing. And yes, and believe me, it's something that we hear about viewers, we hear about fans, and we hear about fanatics. I think you converted the whole viewers to fans of journey towards a complete being fanatic about creating a moment.
Yeah.
So it's when all those things were happening for you, you yourself were a fan. But what is a fan according to you who actually joined you in the whole moment?
Yeah, I mean, you get different types of fans, right? And I think what we represent is you kind of hardcore fans, yeah? And what I mean by hardcore fans is that there wasn't a culture in India 20 years ago where Indian cricket fans used to travel around the world and support the team. Right? And what you have in India now is you have what I call different class systems where middle class are now traveling abroad, supporting not just cricket, but supporting all Indian athletes across sports, right? And that culture didn't really exist before, but we have that culture now in India, and from Indians all over the world, who want to travel abroad and support their country across sports, right? And so from my perspective, what I wanted to do was build that type of community, right? Where if you're Indian and you've got a passion for cricket, you can join the Bharat Army, and you can follow the Indian cricket team wherever they play around the world. Because as you know, right, we have thousands and thousands of Indian people in the UK, in the
Yes.
USA, in places in Asia, as well
Yeah.
as obviously India, right? And we all share similar passions for sport, right? So it was about creating that sort of global community of something
Mhm.
we all were very passionate about.
Oh wow! And so, in the whole process, you just mentioned who is the real fan. I think somebody who is just passionate and expresses is not only being passionate and sitting at home, but being passionate, expressing the whole feeling towards the team, or it could be
Yeah,
anything. It's like you could be passionate about anything, and we just I just saw about you now starting a new team about the whole army about supporting Manchester United as
yeah,
well. So
yeah.
what is that fan in you keeps you growing?
Yeah.
How do you keep growing that fan in you?
Yeah, see, for me, being a fanatical fan is all about feeling the emotion
Hmm.
of the club or the country or the team that you support, right? And if you think about what Bharat Army does, is when you watch cricket with the Bharat Army, you get an experience, and that's the bit
Yes.
that separates what the Bharat Army offers from your everyday cricket fan. So with all the kind of organized noise, I call it, that we bring to a cricket match, whether it's doors, whether it's the flags, whether it's the songs that we sing, it's organized noise, right? When you go and watch cricket in India, I call it unorganized noise, right? It's
Yes.
just very noisy, right?
It's just noisy.
Um,
It's just noisy.
yeah, absolutely. But what we bring is some organization to that noise, right? And if you're a fanatical cricket fan, and you want to be part of that experience, that's what Bharat Army really offers, and I think that's what I strive to keep improving on. How do you improve the experience of the fanatical fan? Um,
Hmm.
you know, Back end of last year, I had a meeting with the BCCI about how we can, enhance that fan experience in the stadium in
Hmm.
India, right?
Nice.
And how do we look at the fan journey in a slightly different way? As you know, in India, sometimes we don't find out about a match taking place until the very last minute. Where do you buy
Yeah.
tickets from? It's all the last minute.
Correct.
And I think these are really important points to think about, right? Particularly, Virat Kohli talks a lot about Test cricket and the importance
Yeah.
of Test cricket, right? But we have to have Test cricket in the right metros, right? We have to make people aware about when they can buy tickets, and not have them queue up outside for 2 hours so they miss the first session.
Right.
All these things are really important, right? So my main objective is to keep enhancing the fan experience, and
Nice.
use the relationships that I have with different bodies and different institutions to try and influence that kind of experience.
Excellent. And I think what you just touched upon the topic of being fans in India. Like we grew up. I'm in 80s and 90s kid. So it's like my life started with '83 World Cup. And then being a Mumbaiker, it is all about Sachin, and it's just it's the biggest moment. And getting the opportunity to be a part of the Indian cricket industry for me, working with MS and CSK and other teams. I think it just grew day in and day out. But always there's a one point on back of my mind is uh, the Indian cricket is still not doing enough for the Indian fans. They have been taken for granted. We are the
Yeah,
fans because while growing up, I think the cricket was hammered onto our head. We had people like Sachin or say Dada and UV and all those people who were there before that also Kumble or Kapil Dev. We started following those people. The whole Indian cricket started following those people. It has become that. So even if there is a game,
yeah,
even if it's not advertised, it's going to be full.
yeah,
But for that BCCI or I'm not, it's not finger pointing. But nobody's doing anything for the fans, as you said rightly. So
yeah.
do you, what do you think because you've been having people going across the world for multiple games and the infrastructure that you see or the facilities that you get to see,
Yeah.
how do you compare that with your Bharat Army sitting in India?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question, Sid, right? Because funnily enough, we get more support from the boards outside of India right,
Ah,
than we do from our own board, you know. Um, so, whether it's the ECB or Cricket Australia or New Zealand Cricket recently, all of these boards engage with us. All of them ask us about how we can create a better experience
mhm.
for us Indian fans when we come to their country, Only last week, you know, I was talking to somebody within one of the test matches where India are going to play next year in England, you know, and they're saying, look, we want to make sure that we give Bharat Army the best experience we can when the
Yes.
test match happens next year. But our own board doesn't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's changing, if I'm honest with you. I think, you know, now we have Saurav Ganguly in charge. You know, in 20 years, I've never been invited to, you know, meet the people in the BCCI, you know, and I
Mm-hmm.
met Rahul Jory, you know, at the BCCI, and I explained to him, I said, look, you know, like you said, you know, that in the past, you know, fan experience, the fan journey hasn't been considered. You know,
Correct.
I've been to a lot of stadiums in India, across India, and some of the facilities have been shocking. You know,
Yes.
and if we want to create, you know, more diverse crowd in the stadiums, we have to make sure we facilitate, you know, for that to
Correct.
happen. You know, you know, if you look at sort of, you know, the sanitary facilities, you know, the toilets are shocking. You know, absolutely shocking. You know, and if you're expecting people to spend 3 sessions of a test match in a stadium, you know, you have to facilitate that as well. You know, so we can't complain that we don't have Indian fans turning up to Test match cricket, right? When we
Mm-hmm.
don't provide the right kind of environment and facilities for them.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
so I think there's a lot of work to do from a fan perspective in India. The one
Mm-hmm.
thing we know is that fans will never stay away because we're
Yes.
so passionate about the game. But you can certainly improve the fan experience in areas where we have gaps. And in Test cricket, which is what our captain currently says is the most important format for our country, we still have empty stadiums. Right? We still have,
Yes.
you know, a third full, sometimes even less. You know, so I think there's a bit of work to do there. And I guess the challenge is that until whiteboard cricket still fills up the stadiums, etc., right, still brings in the commercial revenue,
Yeah. Correct.
uh, things are going to be difficult, right? But I think we have a responsibility. I think Bharat Army has a responsibility as well to use what we have created to at least now communicate with the right boards and to
Right.
try and influence and things happen. And that's kind of what I'm passionate about. You know, I want to make sure that, you know, not only do we play the best cricket and we have the best players and we have the best stadiums, but we also make sure that we look after the best fans as well, because I believe
Correct.
we have the best fans.
It's very, very well said. I think we have the best fans, and because we, by not having the best of the facility or best of the starting from parking to sanitation, everything, and they still turn up for those games and
Yeah,
standing out in the queue for 2 hours. I think we have the best fans.
yeah.
From those fans to you as a fan, what has been your greatest moment?
I think personally for me, I mean, I lived in India from 2010 in Mumbai, actually, from 2010 to 2015. So I was very lucky. I saw every single India match in the 2011 World Cup.
Wow.
I traveled across India with my friends, and we watched every match right to the final. So I've always said, you know, as an Indian cricket fan, you can't ask for anything more than actually watching your team win a World Cup at home. So I was sitting in the North Stand Tier 2 when Dhoni hit that six. And you know, for me, that was the highlight of my kind of cricketing experiences over the years, for sure.
Yes, and I can still hear the Ravi Shastri saying, and it's Dhoni finishes off in style.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
and I was in the US that time, and we stay awake the whole night. I was in the Bay Area, and after the game was over, in our community we had I'll share a video with you later. We had almost 200-300 people coming in India jersey and just started
Amazing.
singing a lot of things. In Bay Area, people had no clue what was happening. So all the Americans were completely clueless what's going wrong with these people. But yeah, that was the passion. That's how we came out, and
Absolutely.
that has been, as you said, like 2011 has been one of the greatest moment. And you also mentioned, I didn't know that you were in India that time, and
Yes.
enjoyed
Yes.
that. So
Yeah.
there is you lived in the UK, and that's where you started all this thing. And we always hear from all the past cricketers of 80s and 90s. They say whenever we go on the international tours, the fan used to call us home, and we used to have nice sessions in the evenings and have fun, and it was a very
Yeah.
friendly environment. Do you think that is still happening, or the security has taken over a lot of those the
Yeah.
personal touch?
Yeah, I think it does still happen. You know, I think the more high profile a player you are, the less you hear about it, the less you see it.
Yes.
You know, but it definitely still happens because I know of friends of mine who have relationships with certain players
Mhm.
who have those kind of opportunities as well. But I just don't think, with the way social media works these days, that you see as much of it
Yeah.
online, so to speak. Yeah. But it definitely does happen. And I definitely think that's important still because, like you said earlier on, without the fans, we don't really have a sport, right? And so
Yeah.
that interaction and relationship between, players and fans is very, very important. And I have to say one thing that I think, Virat Kohli as an individual, he understands that, he recognizes that, and you often see him engaging with the fans in the stadium, trying to get
Yes.
the fans up, etc., etc. Yeah,
It's he's a character, and I think he plays pretty well. He's a guy with a control aggression. He has the control over his head.
yeah,
So I don't know what's going to happen after this when there is no MS and Virat together in the team.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
tough to accept.
yeah.
But what has been your memory of the Indian cricketers who come there and you got to spend some time with them? What has been your greatest memory?
Yeah, well, I'm like you. I grew up starting watching cricket in the early '90s, late '80s. Yeah, so I remember in 1990 is when I fell in love with the game properly. When I understood cricket properly as well. When Sachin came to England for the first time,
Yes. Oh, wow.
and I went to see him play a practice match at the Indian Gymkhana in Osterley in London. And he was obviously a very young boy there. And at the time, he was using his Slazenger V12 bat, if you remember. Um,
Yes, I remember.
and I made my father buy me a Slazenger V12 bat as well. And I took the bat. I hadn't used it yet. I took the bat to the match with me, and I was lucky enough to meet Sachin. And I asked him to sign the bat for me, and he signed it. And he said, "Best wishes, Rakesh. Go well," kind of thing. And I've never used a bat since then. So I was very lucky that I got to engage and interact with him, at a very early age in his career. And I bought the bat that he used, and I got him to sign it as well. So it's one
Oh,
of
wow.
the best parts of my memorabilia that I have.
For me, it's like I saw Sachin when he and Kamli made those 560 runs, and so I used to train at the parallel nets, and we went and saw that game. I was a teenage boy, and I was 13 and he was 15.
Yeah.
So it was
Wow.
like those memories are there for Sachin, and that's where the whole I fell in love with the game
Yes.
with Sachin, and I grew with the game with Sachin, and then obviously the pinnacle happened with MS. Uh,
Yeah.
so you've been a fan of Indian sport and or cricket specifically, and so what has sports taught you, and
Yeah.
how do you align that with life?
Yeah. That's a good question that no one has ever really asked me, right? And what I say is that I mentioned earlier on that particularly for people outside of India, that we have this disconnect, right? And one of the things I want to try and do with Bharat Army is build a community within a community. And I think that's what we've been able to do, right? So
Mhm.
we now have Bharat Army communities in multiple countries around the world, whether it's in Australia, where we have grown tremendously, or New Zealand, or Dubai, or whether it's in Singapore recently, which is really grown. And obviously in the UK, we have a big presence. But what we
Yes.
have created is kind of this global community where people feel part of a family. Even if you're not actually within India, you still feel
Yes.
part of something, right? And I think that's what sport can really do, right? Is where you feel like you have a sense of belonging, that you're part of something,
Mhm.
you know. And actually, if you can link that to something which you love in terms of sport and in terms of cricket, and if you can link that back to your country as well, where you come from, right, where your
Mhm.
heritage is, that's a very strong combination, right?
Yeah.
And I think what we've been able to do with Bharat Army, and what I hope to do replicate across sports, is create that sense of community, right? Create
Right.
that sense of belonging, where you have that kind of passion for something which is
Mhm.
common between everybody in your community, whether you're
Right.
inside India or outside India. I think that's the key thing for me.
Wow. And I think it's a nice message that to build a community, because finally that's what goes a long way, and build it together. It's something that we should follow in life as well. And
Yeah,
again, as I grew up in India playing multiple sports and watching sport, and always thought that why the European sport, or say football, the Premier League is so famous because of the whole building community culture. It
yeah,
is not about it's not, people don't follow stars. people follow the team because there is a
Yeah.
passion about it. And
Absolutely.
that is what it has to come to India. It has still not happened with IPL. It is still
Yeah.
following the stars, but I think eventually it will happen, and that's what we are
Yeah.
looking at. And
I think on that point, I think there's we are also talking to a couple of IPL teams around replicating the Bharat Army model, to IPL as well, right? I
correct,
think
yeah,
opportunity is there to do it. I think you have to get your objectives clear as to what it is that you're trying to achieve. Um,
correct,
and one thing that people need to understand with Bharat Army is that Bharat Army, for 15 years was not a commercial entity. It was purely for the love of the game, love of the cricket. And because of the demand for people that wanted to travel with us to go to different parts of the world, we had to commercialize it. We had no
right.
choice. So you have that kind of organic kind of growth within your
Hmm.
model. And I think IPL has followed a similar type of model, right? Where you have all these unofficial flank hubs, right? But
Yes,
they are disconnected to the IPL franchise. There's no kind of
correct.
engagement with the IPL franchise. I think a couple of them have done it well. CSK have done it very well. I think
Yes.
RCB have started to do it really well. But most of them, they don't have that connection. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and still the connection is not there with the end fan who is actually buying the ticket and coming there. Most of these things happen with the people who are getting the celebrity tickets or the box tickets who may not even buying it, and they are the one who are actually enjoying with the having
yeah,
those fun, but not the end user who is actually buying the ticket and going there and support the team.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, what? So, if people know Bharat Army, or even I knew Bharat Army as a fan group who is giving the experience for people to sit in the stadium and really enjoy that game and support your team from the core. It's a carnival when you go for the game.
Yeah.
Uh, what all other aspects that you look after as a company, as you said, after 15 years you actually became a commercial entity. So,
Yeah.
what all aspects that we actually fan can look up to Bharat Army to support them or help
Yeah.
them with?
Yeah, I think one of the key points is right is that when we talk about creating these experiences, particularly in the stadium, the stadiums only hold certain number of people, right?
Yes,
But we have millions and millions of people that watch cricket, yeah.
correct.
And unfortunately, not all of those cricket fans can make it to the stadium for various different reasons. Maybe they can't afford it, maybe they can't afford to travel, or they don't have the facility or resources to do that, right? So one of the things that we're trying to do is to bring the experience of Bharat Army to as many people as possible, right? So we want to bring all the emotion that comes to when you're outside a stadium and how you feel when you're walking into the stadium. We want to bring the emotion of the fan in the stadium, yeah, to as many people. So we're building these platforms, online
Mm.
platforms, through various different channels. So one platform we used during the World Cup in England was BATV, Bharat Army TV,
Yes. Hmm.
where we would actually, as fans, we would interview other fans as they
Right.
were going in the stadium, as they were coming outside the stadium, and capture that raw emotion, you know.
Right.
Um, because you as a fan watching on TV, you also want to feel what the fans are feeling, right?
Correct.
And you also want to debate what the fans are debating, yeah. And if you look at sort of other channels online at the moment, you have all these ex-players, ex-commentators,
Yes.
but they're all talking about the same things, you
Yeah.
know. And in many cases, you don't actually get to talk as a fan, right? So what we want to do is make sure we have that platform which allows, whether you're an Indian cricket fan living in a very small village in India, that you can come onto our platform and you can engage with a fan sitting in the Bay Area of San Francisco, right?
Right.
And you have that conversation online. So we're creating these different types of platforms which allows us to connect all fans from all countries, all parts of countries around the world,
Hmm.
if you follow Indian cricket, basically. Yeah.
Oh,
So I think
nice.
that's a key project we're working on at the moment is various different platforms that allow us to do that, basically.
And the and what? How do you grow your army?
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, we're growing very aggressively, organically, because of our relationships with the cricket boards and with ICC.
Mm.
We're getting a lot of coverage every time India travels now. There's a lot of attention on the fans, and so that's why we work a lot with the other cricket boards. And so because of that exposure we get, we partner with Star Sports, for example.
Yeah.
We give Star Sports a lot of content from a fan
Correct.
perspective, and that obviously grows our brand and grows our knowledge of presence of who we are, what we do. but obviously we're very socially active as well, right? So
Right.
we're across all different social media channels, and we're very active there, particularly on match days. But also right now during this pandemic, we've been keeping fans very engaged, keeping them
Mhm.
entertained with very different initiatives and projects that we're doing.
Right. Excellent. And so, Rax, I have, in fact, I had only one question, but in the flow, I just created one question here. How is the atmosphere in London for India-Pakistan game?
I mean, if you haven't experienced it, it's quite difficult to explain, right? But because of the hype,
Yes.
about that. I interviewed recently one of the players, Vijay Shankar, who played in that tournament, and
Right.
he
I
was
saw that. Yeah.
yeah, and he was saying himself that he didn't really understand this until he actually turned up, right? And he said, the whole city in Manchester was a complete buzz, and you could feel it. You could feel the tension even in the city.
Yes.
With fans coming in for 3 days, people were arriving in huge numbers. I don't think it gets bigger than an India versus Pakistan match. I remember I went to watch India versus Pakistan in Bangalore back in 1996,
Yeah.
and at that time I didn't really, because I was quite young, I didn't really feel or understand what it meant. And it was
Mhm.
only until the 99 World Cup did I actually feel it, because it was during the Kargil War as well, right? So there was already a
Yeah.
lot of
Correct.
tension. Yeah.
Correct.
But that's when I really realized, the rivalry, properly between the fans. I have to say that I don't think I've watched or enjoyed one India-Pakistan match ever. I've never enjoyed it because there's so much tension to it. Yeah. I enjoy the
Yeah.
result.
Believe me. Yeah.
I enjoy the result after, but during the match, there's too much tension. So it's very difficult to actually enjoy the match, if that makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what my question was: is if you are tense about the whole game, how do you motivate the whole Bharat Army to keep cheering in the stadium?
Yeah, but look, I think that's why we have groups of people, right? Because it's not down to one person, right? It's down to everybody who's part of that army to G up everybody else. And I'll never forget in
Yes.
2003, Centurion, yeah, the World Cup in South Africa, and Saeed Anwar was batting really well, right? And
Hmm.
the crowd went very quiet, yeah, and it was probably 80% Indian crowd in Centurion in South Africa.
Yes.
And Saurav Ganguly, he turned around, he looked at the Bharat Army, and he started waving his hands, saying, "Come on, guys, I can't hear you." And as soon as we started singing and cheering, we took his wicket. So I think the fans play a very important part. And I think the relationship between the players and the fans is very, very important. And I think that's just an example of actually how we have to make sure we're constantly loud, constantly cheering the team, singing the team. And I think that's one thing that I think that's changed from an Indian fan culture perspective. Back in the day, if there was a bad time, in a match, you would hear booing and you'd hear all this kind of stuff, and you don't see that anymore in Indian cricket.
Yeah.
Which is really pleasing to see.
Excellent. So Rax, I think this between a fan to fan, the dialogue can go on forever. But yes, with the keeping time in mind, I wanted to have one question to a last question. What's your message to all the fans of Indian sport, be it cricket or be it any sport? Because
Yeah,
India is has a potential to become a superpower in sport.
yeah,
But the fans have still not gone there. Beyond cricket, we're still struggling for the
yeah,
fans.
yeah.
So, what is your message to all the fans across sport?
Yeah, I think when we talk about across sports, one of the things that disappoints me the most, right, about sports in our country is that some of the other sports, where I believe there's tremendous amount of talent in India, it doesn't get the backing, it doesn't get the support, right?
Mhm.
But yet we have tremendous talent,
Yeah,
in our country. And I think the fans play a really important role really encouraging those children, for example, who have a passion for a sport outside of cricket,
right.
to really motivate them to continue their passion, right? And ultimately, what sports people do is they like to perform, right? But if they don't have fans to perform for,
Yeah,
then
what will you do?
why would they continue doing it? So I think we as fans of whatever sport that we follow, right, we have a really important role to encourage the people that play the game to continue playing the game and to be the best that they can actually be. And we have seen a change in football recently in India, where now you're seeing more fans follow the Indian football team, right?
Yes, correct.
And that's really important, right? Because if we want to encourage more children to play the game, right, who can then perform to big stadiums, right, then they need to have that motive to do that, right?
Correct.
So I think that that's really important, right, from a fan perspective. And what I would like to see is, more fans support some of the high-profile sports in India, right? Because
Right.
that's where we can really create more world champions across multiple sports.
Yes.
And for me, I'd love to go to an Olympics and see India win lots of medals in lots of sports, because I believe we have the talent to do that, but we need that
Yes.
ecosystem around that sport to be able to achieve that.
Right. So, Rax, is Bharat Army beyond cricket as well as we know the Manchester United is your personal club that you follow. Though I am a Liverpool fan and I'm very happy so right now.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Yeah. So I'm currently very happy what has happened. But yeah, so the way you have moved from Indian cricket
Yeah.
to support creating a group for that. Do you see Bharat Army supporting all the Indian sports in near future?
Yeah, I mean, we already do that. I mean, not we don't advertise this too much or talk too much about this, but last year we supported 3,000 children play sports, and all those sports were everything but cricket. So cricket was the only sport that we didn't support, right? And we do that through an organization called SFA, Sports for All. I don't know if you know who they
Sports
are.
for all. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So Sports for All actually is a very good story, because two of the guys that run that, Rishi and Vish, are friends of
Rishi,
mine,
yeah, I know.
and they're Bharat Army members. And I met them in South Africa in 2003, and they're now very good friends of mine. And what we're doing is we're using the Bharat Army communities globally, all of our members globally, who contribute to supporting children play all these sports that SFA have in their championships. So we pay for their fees to play the sports, we pay for equipment, etc., etc., right? And that's our way of giving back to sport in India, but not cricket, because cricket is very well funded, it's very well looked after.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are really keen to see, the future champions of India from other sports as well, and that's our way of giving back to India outside of cricket as well. So absolutely, we play a role outside of cricket, and we would love to be in a situation where we could take Bharat Army, to support our athletes across different sports as well. We just need to encourage those children and those people to come through and play those sports, right?
Excellent, Rax. This is phenomenal. This is one fan converting his dream into a movement and having building an army of 60,000 and continuously growing. More power to you. And really happy to have this chat with you. And keep, uh, keep supporting. I know you will keep supporting other sports beyond cricket. And I think we will see. I think our dreams of seeing India on the multiple podiums is going to be happening soon. So thank you,
Okay.
Rax.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Wish you all the best and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Jai Hind.